All right, all right. Hello, YouTubers. This is Miss Trina at the Luk'A'Here, y'all podcast. This is my third and final installment on my Caregivers at the Crossroads series. It's called Caregiving and Culture When Values Collide. When tradition meets reality, the caregiver stands at the crossroad, which is true. So here we go. Let's get into it, people. Last and final installment. Look at my microphone. Is it crooked? Am I okay? What? Anyway, here we go. Like I said, hey family, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is one that hits close to home, literally and figuratively. Figuratively, yeah. I'm gonna have to make sure I know what I'm writing. But anyway, we're talking about caregiving and culture, about what happens when the way we were raised, the values we hold, and the expectation of our families all show up in the same room, and we're the ones that's holding it together. Okay, whether it's how we talk about illness, who makes the decisions, or what respect looks like, culture shapes caregiving in ways we don't always see until we're in the thick of it, which is true. So today we're unpacking what happens when values collide and how we can honor tradition without losing ourselves. Now let's start with this. Culture in the care plan. Okay? Let's start with how culture shows up in caregiving. It's in the food we prepare, the way we speak to our elders, the silence around mental health, the expectation that daughters will care for their aging parents, no questions asked. But in some cultures, placing a loved one in a facility is seen as abandonment. In others, it's considered responsible. And when you're the caregiver, you're often caught between what your heart knows and what your culture demands. Okay? So let's name that tension. Yeah, we can talk about it. Now, this segment is called When Values Collide. Okay? I wrote down some real moments where values collided. Okay? And they're my moments. So I can only tell you the way I experienced it, not nobody else. So here we go. Okay? It was at a time when I wanted to set my boundaries dealing with a patient that I have. But they family saw it as disrespect. For real. Like, I'm supposed to be on call, available every time my phone rings, even if it's not within hours. Because if it was within my work hours, I would be there doing it. But if it's not within my work hours, no, that's not. I'm cutting it off simply because I'm human and I have things to do too. Okay? Now, within this family, I saw that the family member, well, not the family member that I was caring for, but another family member. Okay? I saw that she was beginning to forget too. Now, mind you, I done been with this family for like 6 months. Okay? Now, when I saw the other family member forget something like that, I went to the family member that hired me to take care of the mother, because this is the mother's sister. Okay? The mother's sister was living there too, but she was all right, just not all right enough to take care of her sister, which was why I was hired. But when I went to the daughter to inquire about the sister, oh baby, she just baby, and this is what she told me: we don't talk to strangers about our problems. Stranger, I felt some type of way about that. Simply because I'm a caregiver and I see the need somewhere, so I should be able to say something. But when I do say something, I'm nipped at the bud, like basically saying, "Oh, that ain't your business. Take care of my mama." You know me, honey. I'm gonna back that thing up like juvenile. You know what I'm talking about? Going on about my business. But in this family, they expected for me to sacrifice everything because that's what good caregivers do. Okay? That's what good caregivers do. We sacrifice everything. Well, no, we just drop what we're doing to go to take care of a patient. We stop what we're doing to listen to a family member. This is the way they want us to be, but these ain't just disagreements. They're identity clashes. For real. Because ain't no telling what their family dynamic is. But what I'm not going to do is feed into it. Now, that was my whole problem. Feeding into everybody's family dynamic. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. Shoot, I'm calling their family members daddy and uncle. Thinking I'm in the thinking I'm in the family and got to comply like this. You know what I mean? And if we don't talk about them, we carry that weight in silence. So here's the truth, okay? You can love our culture and still challenge the parts that hurt you. Okay? You can honor your elders and still protect your peace. You can be a good caregiver without being a martyr. Now, come on now. I mean, we all, got this thing where we just have to be the best at what we do. And if we feel like we're not the best at what we do, it ain't no use in doing it. So, with that being said, I have found some tools for cultural navigation. So let's talk tools, okay? Here are 5 ways to navigate cultural tensions in caregiving. Number 1, name the value. What belief is at play? Is it about respect, privacy, or gender roles? When I say name the value, I mean like what's going on right now? Is it about respect, privacy, or gender roles? That's what you have to determine when you talking tools to cope with the in-home care. Okay? You should always ask, not assume. Can you tell me what this means to you? Open more doors than that's just how they are. You know what I mean? Like, can you tell me? Instead of just saying, yeah, that's just how they are. We just gonna leave it like that. Instead of looking into it, instead of diving into it to see why this is happening or to see why this is commonplace. You have to have your own understanding of the patient and the family that you're working for too. You really do. You can either fit in or you can fit out. And the reason why I say you fit in, when you fit in, that means you're doing everything that the family needs for you to do, whether it's during work hours or after work hours. But when you fit out, that means you only come in here, you have set your boundaries, you are doing what it requires to take care of this patient for the 8 hours that's allotted to you. And after that 8 hours is over, you out, you gone, phone off, we done. You see what I mean? You can either fit in or you can fit out, but it's up to you. It's up to you to put those into perspective about, do you want to fit in or do you want to fit out? And if anybody is hearing this and you got a conversation or a question, or you have your own little story wherever, by all means share it. I love to hear it so I can make your voice heard in my in my upcoming in-home videos. I would love to hear that. Now, you can use cultural brokers. And what I mean by this, a cultural broker is somebody that knows about the culture way before you even got here. Okay, it can be a trusted elder, it could be your pastor, or your community leader that can bridge the gap. So if you don't understand why this family is acting like that, like towards you or towards the work you give or whatever, you can actually go to your elders, go to a church. I mean, they'll pray for you. They'll do whatever it takes to gain restoration in your in-home care job when it comes to bridging the gaps in the different cultural communities. Because I could be a black person taking care of a Spanish person, don't know nothing about their culture, but all I'm doing is going by textbook is what I have to do. Instead of actually seeing what's going on in their culture, we still work by hours just to get the day done and get on up out of there so we can have our work done for the day. But sometimes it just don't work like that. You have to get to know who you taking care of. You have to get to know the family that you're dealing with. if you want this job to go smoother. Oh, whew, I'm just going to tell you something right now, baby. This garage ain't got no love. Baby, it is too hot up out here, honey. 2-minute break. Okay, I'm back. Whew, it's getting hot in this garage, baby. Now, number 4 is to set your boundaries with love. Okay? I want to honor you, and I also need to take care of myself. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell a patient, well, I know I'm off tomorrow, and if you need me, I won't be available because I have. And you don't really have to tell them what you have to do. You just let them know that you will not be available the next day. You know? So, you know, with that being said, it's ways to say no. Okay? Tone is very important. But it's ways to say no in a loving space. You know? Or just create your own traditions. You know, like blend the old ones with the new one. Make space for healing. Culture is not a cage. It's a canvas. And you get to paint your own version of curl. Now, ain't that cool? You get to paint your own version of curl. And that's all right. You know, especially when you have to put boundaries in place. So, now, Kim, a friend of mine, Kim, well, she said I could say her name, but I ain't going to say her whole name, but Kim, I used to work with her at a facility in Mansfield where I was promoted to lead training CNA. Okay? And I asked her to actually share, you know, just share one story with me so I can give it to you guys up under this subject, you know, when cultures collide. And she was something else. So I'm just going to tell you what she said, and I wrote it down word for word, okay? She said, in my family, we don't talk about dementia. We just say, oh, she's just getting old. I had to fight to get my grandmother diagnosed. Okay? Yeah. Now, excuse me, but I'm just going to say it. This was a Spanish household. Yeah, this is a Spanish household. Kim is Spanish, yes. But she said since she's been working in nursing and she's been, you know, working with patients with dementia and, you know, Parkinson's and all kind of, mental health disabilities, she found out, well, she learned that the things that her grandmother was doing was the same things that a couple of her patients was doing. So when she went to take it to her mama, to tell her mama about her mama went ballistic. She sure did. Girl, she just getting old. You ain't got to worry about that. But she actually went behind her parents' back to talk to her grandmother's doctor, you know, to let them know that she sees something, you know, in her grandmother that she see in her patients. And she would really have to, you know, she want to see if her grandmother is, has dementia, you know. So when she spoke to her grandmother's doctor, the doctor had the nerve to call the mama, okay? And this Kim and her mama actually had a fist fight. That's what she meant. That's what she meant when she said, I had to fight to get my grandmother diagnosed. Ain't that something? You have to fight your mama. Lord forgive me. That's not funny. But when you have to fight family members to get another family member diagnosed, yeah, y'all got some good stuff going on in y'all family, baby. For real. Y'all got some real good stuff going on in y'all family. Now, Chris, like I told you, I used to work with Chris, and Chris said that he the only son, and he was always told that caregiving was women's work. But shoot, I stepped up. And now I'm teaching my nephews that care has no gender. Okay? It's a cultural thing now. Chris is white. Okay? Yeah. Because when I met him up there, it was cool to see another, it was cool to see a male doing it and loving the way he doing it. Now, true enough, I have seen males in in CNAs. You know what I'm saying? I have seen, male nurses. Don't get me wrong, but everybody would think that care would naturally be for female, for females. But Chris was something else though, for real. He loved what he did, and he actually told me that he taught two of his nephews about caregiving, and they CNAs now. You know, it in a culture, well, in their culture where CNAs or nursing is just straight women's work, period. So I'm like, man, what? But I mean, that's a good thing for you to teach your nephews. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but these are just two stories that let you know that culture evolves when we do. Culture evolves when we do. And every time you speak up, you make space for somebody else to breathe. So with that being said, that's a pretty good thing. So, but we're going to close with these affirmations. You can say them with me or you can write them down or whatever, but I always have affirmations like every day. Well, when I was in nursing, I still have them today, but they not, nursing related, but I have affirmations. I had affirmations, so, and I wrote some of them down. I wrote like 3 of them down just to share with y'all. You can either say them with me or you can write them down yourself and, have them for later. But number 1 is I can honor my roots and still grow in new directions. You can honor what you have, because our roots in the black community, our roots is what we consider to be history, the history of our family. So we try to preserve that as much as we can, if not so much as talking about it, if they're in a diminutive state. But, me, myself, I be writing stuff down, the stuff I found out about my uncles and aunties, and grandfathers and grandmothers. I sure do. Because I can apply it to my everyday living. Okay? And the other one is, I am allowed to question what I was taught. And you are. You are. If you find a specific area that you were taught wrong in, you can question that, and you can make it right by today's standards. You know what I mean? Like, if you were taught hand washing 3 years ago, and your hand washing consisted of 30 seconds, but you found out 3 years later that it's actually 45 seconds to wash your hands. Yeah, you can question that, but still, wash your hands for 45 seconds. That's what you do. And number 3 is my care is valid even if it looks different. So if I take care of Mr. Morgan way different than Patrice take care of Mr. Morgan, my care is still valid because he survived this 8-hour shift with no accidents and no falls. You know what I mean? So just like Sarah, when she provided that care for him, she could give the same kind of care, but she can put a little spin on it. It's just what we do. So thank y'all for joining me today. Now I actually put this series out of order. This is not the order it's supposed to be in. Okay? My next week's podcast was the hidden curriculum of caregiving, but I already did that. And the reason why I did that is because I was asked to when I spoke on it to one of my nursing friends. And if you go on my playlist, on the Luk'A'Here y'all playlist, you will see under that curriculum is one view. And she was the one that viewed it. And she called me back and she told me about it. And I thought that was too cool. So like with everybody else, if you got any kind of comments or questions or, you can either like, and subscribe or whatever. If you have any, I would love to hear from y'all in this space. I would love to hear from my fellow CNAs in this space. But so until then, you are not betraying your culture by protecting your peace. You are expanding it. Okay? So with that being said, people, continue to love and help each other. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.